Hello, welcome back to Cozy with Chelsea. I am Chelsea, your host, and today on the podcast we have Heidi. Heidi is a holistic business coach who helps sensitive solopreneurs grow with strategy, soul, and spaciousness. She has been working for herself her entire adult life, kind of by accident, from starting out as a self-taught web developer to growing too fast, burning out, building a team, navigating family business dynamics, and eventually finding her way back to working solo, this time on her own terms. She is a certified director of operations, a life coach, Ayurvedic health counselor, and yoga teacher, and she blends all of that wisdom into her coaching. Through her Soulful Scaling program, she guides solopreneurs to grow in ways that actually fit them, weaving in human design, self-care, and mindful strategy. So, welcome to the podcast, Heidi.
Thank you, Chelsea. It's so lovely to be here.
Of course. So, I'm really interested to know more about what your work looks like working with sensitive entrepreneurs.
I think we might have talked about this when we met before, that the way that we learn to be in business, there's so many things that it brings for us to heal, where we get to the kind of the end of the capacity of doing things a certain way, like checking your email all day long. And so there really become invitations for us to learn how to work differently. And so it's not just a personal like mission, I feel like, for us as individuals, but it's kind of a broader call to change our relationship to work. So like what that looks like with an individual client, it really varies based on where they're at. But most of the time, there's a lot of like unlearning of habits that have taken them to the brink or beyond of a burnout, because we grow up thinking that the professional and the personal, they're separate, and that lends us to a relationship of sacrificing the personal. And what I found, for me and for my clients is that like really taking into account the personal is actually what gives you the sustainability, and also like just the joy and the inspiration for what it is that makes you truly unique. So figuring out what that is a big part of what I do. Like, where is it not working? And then what can you do differently? And like, where do we get those ideas from? Like looking at, if you're an introvert, then what strategies work well with you, looking at your human design, how your energy is built, and how that can translate into your marketing or into the way that you structure your offers. So there's a lot of deep work, and then figuring out the strategies. And then along the way, it's like dealing with stress in your nervous system. Where are you at? Are you feeling overextended? Where can we bring in some support into how you're working? And that looks like, simple practices. It's not complicated stuff. It's just a lot of having the permission and the space, like a space, someone who gets it and can help you develop it without feeling like you're doing something wrong or you have to get it done tomorrow. It's like this is a deep personal growth process, right?
I love the work that you're doing, and I actually, before launching my business, worked with a coach on that. Like
Cool.
she informed me of my human design. So I wasn't really familiar with that until I worked with her. But that was very helpful realizing, I mean, there were a lot of things in my human design. I'm a projector, and I think you are too, right?
Yeah.
So, how do you incorporate human design into the work that you do?
So looking at, especially if someone is new to human design, we run the charts, which is very simple. If for folks who haven't done it before, it's just your birth information. There's no big long forms, but it's amazing. It's amazing the amount of information and often like deep insight that it has. So the first is just, okay, getting that, and then the main pieces of it, which are like your type, your numbers, that I'm a 2-4 projector, your authority, how your intuition works, your decision making, and then starting to play with that. And sometimes it's more of an experiment of like, okay, I've got this information, like it sounds good, but is this actually going to be effective for me? Is this actually how I am? So then one of the first places is in your energy. Is how does your human design say that your energy is best used? Like for us as projectors, it's really being very mindful with how you use your energy. And so building in space to rest, to not be pushing. So what does that look like for a launch? For a projector, a launch, we'll try to design it so it requires much less ongoing energy, whereas someone who is a generator, which has an energy that's usually more constant, more reliable, not always if they're burned out, then somebody would design the launch a little bit differently, but always being mindful of, okay, well, where are you starting to feel exhausted and why? And how can we optimize it so that it's in the end feeling as easeful as possible?
I think it's so interesting because when she told me that I was a projector and how the energy of it works, and then also waiting for the invitation, I was
Yes.
like, I don't want to do that.
Me too. I was like, oh no, this is terrible.
Yeah, well, and I had been trained and mentored by people who would absolutely not agree with that, right? Like in my role
Yeah.
as an executive, it's like push, 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 go, 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 create everything you possibly
Yeah.
can, ask for the sale. Like it just was the entire opposite of what she was telling me. But I also,
Yeah.
in that role, experienced burnout. So, yeah, it makes sense, but I had to
Yeah.
kind of relearn how to go to business for myself. So,
Yeah. Me too. Me too. And so, like a projector, a lot of our qualities are the opposite of what our culture prescribes
mm,
as like the best, the way that you do things. In order to be productive and valuable, you need to be doing all the time. You need to be active, taking massive action. And I was at a place in my coaching where I was in containers that was what was being taught as the strategy. And I was feeling really challenged by it. And then that brought in like questions of my own worth or belonging. Is this the path for me? And so finding this alternative way of seeing myself, yeah, at first I was like, oh crap, like this is terrible. But then I started to be like, oh, thank goodness. Like it's only like it's not working for me because that's not me, right? It's not how I
yeah.
work best.
Yeah, and it's great to find out that there is another way to do it, right? One that
Yeah.
doesn't end
Yeah.
in burnout. So obviously that's a projector situation because I personally relate to
Right.
that, but I'm sure just working with sensitive entrepreneurs, you're always looking at an
Yeah.
alternative way to what society
Yeah.
teaches us, right?
Mm, yeah, I love that.
So,
Yeah.
so what does it mean? Like, how would one know if they're a sensitive entrepreneur? And when did you first identify as
Mm.
one?
Oh, that's such a good question. That is such a good question because I definitely did not think to even bring that into the equation when I was in my first business. Like that, what did that have to do with it? You just have to do business. You just have to do the work, right? And I think the only time I really did think about it was with networking and just being aware of how challenging big groups could be and being mindful of my energy. That was pretty much the only space where I thought about it. And so in my journey to heal my burnout, I basically ended up starting a parallel business where I was doing my own healing work and accidentally again became a coaching practice where I had clients and my focus ended up being on confidence and working with introverts. So I was deep into that and then somewhere along the lines, I realized that it's like that. Yes, that personal and the professional, like it's actually all together. Like, and seeing that how much my own introversion and my energy flow like came into play in everything in my business, like really no, like I am not alone. I'm not the only person like this. So it just started to open my mental doors. And the more I thought about it and started working with people in the business sense, because most of the clients I was attracting in my life coaching business were business owners. So it just kind of materialized. And I was doing a lot of teaching yoga and building my awareness of the nervous system, and just those seeing how kind of blown out most of our nervous systems are. I mean, all levels of business. That I think really was probably the key that solidified, like, this is where I want to focus, because most of us were sensitive. Like, how do we know we're sensitive? Probably there's lots of different paths, but if we're feeling consistently like overextended and burned out and not belonging, or not like trying to do all of the things that the gurus say, and like it sounds like with your executive position of like, this is how you're supposed to do things, and it just really not being sustainable, while there's other people who are probably even less capable than you doing great. Oh, and that's because that's where they work best.
It's actually a good question for myself too, because I'm like, when did I first identify as a sensitive person? I'm not sure. I actually had a mentor who basically told me what a sensitive person is. And I was like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Have you read the book, The Highly Sensitive Person? I'm I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure you have. Yeah.
Yeah, I did. And, when I read it, I think what I remember, like, it was pretty extreme, some of the things that she talked about. And I was like, oh, that's too much for me. So I wasn't fully on board with the HSP thing until I gave myself permission to have my own version of it. But the Myers-Briggs test, that was probably where I first got some idea of like, okay, there's a way that we can categorize human beings. And I'm kind of more categorized in the IN side of things. And that was high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm an INFJ. So
Me too.
I would assume it's the INs.
hmm
I mean, I think others could be sensitive too, but that checks out. When
Yeah.
you're working with your clients, who I'm assuming are sensitive or intuitive or introverted or all three of those things, what unique challenges do they face when starting a business or in their business?
I think there's the external and then there's the internal. So the internal piece, I think we tend to be very inwardly focused. And so there's a lot happening in our minds and our internal self-talk. There's a lot of deep analysis and the deep feeling of, constantly kind of evaluating ourselves within a situation, within relationships. And that's true for every human. But I think we tend to get a little bit stuck in our own ways with maybe some self-doubt, with confidence, because we're treading so lightly sometimes. Whereas, I know plenty of extroverts, they don't care. They're just talking. I have a lot of deep connections with Brazil, and like we have some Brazilian friends that like just, it's amazing. I love it. I love the charisma, right? So there tends to be some work there, right? To just look at what is going on in their mindset and their kind of emotional responses to things. Sometimes there's some healing work that can be beneficial to have happen. And so having that as part of what we're looking at, but then what are they trying to achieve in their business? And how do they best create the connection with the people that they want to work with? For an extrovert, that can look like just feeling their charisma and all of their energy, that Tony Robbins thing. And for an introvert, that might not be the place where they shine, right? So where do they shine? Like, is it in how they express themselves through writing? Is it in their teaching? And kind of discovering where they like just can open up their magic and have that come through. And so some of it is if like removing the stuck blocks. Some of it is just like having permission to do things differently and that being okay, right? Seeing that as like, it's not a problem, it's actually the solution. Because when we really embrace who they are and work with it, it's so much easier than trying to perform and be that like type A executive Tony Robbins.
Yeah, I think it can feel kind of scary too. to allow yourself to do something different than what you've been
Yeah.
taught
Yeah.
because you want the end result still, right? You want to grow your business, you want to scale your
Yeah.
business. That's probably a block you see a lot is like a fear of what if this doesn't work? So how do
Yes.
you address that specific concern?
Y- Yeah. Well, if you're trying to do business in a way that doesn't work for you, it's not going to work. Like you will get burnt out, you will sacrifice yourself, you will not feel the joy and ease and freedom that you're looking for. And actually, I mean, we all want the financial results, we want the, increase in clients, we want all that external stuff. But what we tend to do is say that, oh, until I get that, I can't feel good in my business. I have to be pushing. I have to do what everyone else is doing because that works for them. But actually, like when you really start to lean into doing business your way, your pace, and faith, having trust. I mean, that's the path is learning to trust that no matter what happens, you're going to be okay. And that by doing things your way, it's going to feel really good actually helps you to feel in the moment already how you wanted to feel in the future. So just like really loving where you're at, trusting that the right things will happen, kind of lets that grip soften and the anxiety can often like I feel completely different now than a few years ago, than 5 years ago for sure. And like the level of anxiety is like almost non-existent. The amount of trust that I have, even if I don't have the answers, things are crazy out there and in the world, and like who knows, but I feel so much better and grounded in myself, and that makes my business independent of how many new clients I got this month. It makes it feel good. So I think like that's a key thing too, is like your own definition of satisfaction and success. Most of us more sensitive people, it's not really about the external numbers. Like, yes, we want to have money, but not at the sacrifice of our sense of groundedness and connection and joy. I mean, that's definitely how I feel.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, of course, I want to see the business grow, but I also want it to feel good while I'm doing it for myself and for my clients, right? Um,
Yeah.
I like what you say too, that if you're doing it in a way that doesn't feel good, it's probably not sustainable as well. So it's like, even if you're pushing, 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 how is that going to reflect in your business over time if it doesn't match your energy?
Yeah. And if that's the base that you've built on, how are you going to keep going? How are you going to
Yeah.
scale?
And then I heard you earlier talk about the nervous system. So maybe if you can explain the connection there between the nervous system and a sensitive person and scaling your business.
I feel like the nervous system, it's this like inner guidance system that we have that it's kind of a secret until we realize that we need to pay attention to it. Essentially, its job is to sense out in the world whether we're safe or not. And then it brings information to the brain and the brain processes it. And naturally, most of the time, it's going to sense danger, even though, what is danger? It's that my coffee on top of the on the car, so, like anything these days feels dangerous or not safe, partly because we're getting so much information, so much stimulation that in Ayurveda, we call this vata aggravation. We live in a culture that is aggravating to our system. So that means that we tend to just see more, we don't feel safe, and we tend to see things as not safe, even if they are. And so in our businesses, like we're doing things, we're taking risks. There's a lot of unknown. We're taking a lot of social risk also. Like, what are people going to say? What are they going to think? I have to be seen a certain way. And so there's all these additional reasons for us to feel stressed out. And most of the time we don't realize it because we are constantly stressed out, right? This has become our norm and it is how we do things, right? It motivates us like, okay, we got to do this and go through, call these people, and I need to make my financial goals this month so that I got to do this. And a lot of that is actually a stress response. It's not us deciding that this is the best, most aligned way of doing things. It's just reacting. And so, really, I think that stress runs our business, it affects our decision making until we kind of take a step back and start to notice it and then give ourselves space to do things differently to help to calm down. And because when we do that, the way we think changes, right? It goes from like this very pointed like searching for problems way of seeing things to open up to seeing bigger picture, more creativity, different solutions. And like, I'm actually okay. Then from that place, you make different decisions in your business.
So it sounds like just having the ability to feel safe is what's going to allow you to make decisions that align with you in the business and ultimately scale it.
Yeah, and learning how to create that resilience also. Like when you don't feel safe, like okay, like how do you manage that? Because we're not always going to feel comfortable doing what we need to do in our business, but being aware that okay, maybe my response is to go like, yeah, do 50 posts on Instagram of like, okay, pausing, I recognize that. Is this the best use of my time today?
Yeah. I know I was going to ask you, what is your opinion on social media? Because that's a way to market your business, right? But it's also this constant stimuli. So
hmm
I find that one difficult to navigate.
Yeah, I am definitely very open to not having it be a primary marketing tool and just being very thoughtful with how we use it because the recommendations you see often are, post every day, spend an hour every day on there. And my body, when I think about that, like I can feel just in my stomach, it's like getting hit with a ball. It's like, no, that's a no. And that's okay. Like, so then what else can we do? I'm really, for myself, really trying to lean into more like evergreen content and like this, like connecting with people and podcasts and um, where I can have intimate, like real conversations because I'm not Tony Robbins, right? And I don't like this, like these types of interactions, they're more fulfilling too. It's meaningful to me to actually connect with the human, whereas like social media, oftentimes like I can work my mindset around it, to feel empowered or do whatever, but it just takes so much work to get there and stay there. I'm like, okay, let's just do it, now I do it more intuitively of like maybe I'll have one a week. That's my goal, my minimum goal. But then whenever I feel inspired, I want to like make a reel, then I'll just do it. And it just comes out. It's fast. It's not a lot of overthinking, and that's fine. But I'm also not trying to make it generate like lots of leads and things too. So I don't have that kind of
Mm,
pressure on it, which helps a lot.
of course. Yeah, I think it's just kind of identifying what feels good in your body versus what doesn't when it comes to that. Because I think that social media as a whole is overwhelming, but I agree with you. Like the longer form content, like recording a podcast or making a YouTube video that's long format feels a lot better in my body than like pumping out. People say you have to post like
Yes.
5 to 7 times a day on TikTok or whatever that is, and it's like, okay,
Oh
perhaps
my
that's not for
gosh.
me.
Yeah. I remember earlier this year seeing a Facebook ad it was for AI and she's like, well, I just finished all of my posts for the year in 1 hour. And I'm like, that is not the relationship that I want to have with my content,
Mm,
right? That it's just something I'm trying to vomit out into the world.
yeah.
So yeah, not for me. There's so much content now with AI. We can just generate so much that like for me, the moment I see something that has like a really a strong AI tell, I'm like, ugh, like I don't,
Mm,
I'm put off. But when I can feel someone's individuality coming through, then I feel like, oh, thank goodness. And I stay engaged, and I think that that's where I want to be, but like using AI mindfully and trying to just stay very authentic and real.
I'm not a fan of the AI content because it's you can upload your likeness, right? And it creates content for you. I just think, I don't know. It doesn't align with what I would like to do.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, but I do just try to monitor my energy when I'm posting, and some days I'll have a lot of creative ideas or something will come in intuitively and it's easy for me to put that content out there. And
Mm-hmm.
other days it's more of a struggle. So it's just allowing myself to kind of figure out that flow, I think. That's what's working for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I know I tried the rigid kind of content schedules, and it just, there's so much pushing and so much challenge to think about how to write it and all of that. And it's just like, okay, just not, that is not how I want to be in my business.
Mm.
And I think that, that's a good example of like, with my clients, it's finding places where they feel that way. They've been trying, it's the square peg in a round hole where, okay, like the more that we can identify those things and then use that for information for like, okay, how can we do this in a way that feels better than just being in business, your day to day feels better.
Yeah, I know we talked about this last time, but I just keep thinking about with social media, right? It is like so much stimulation coming in, and I'm at the point now where I don't know, it is something to navigate for sure, and it's definitely a way to market your business, but I can't even watch TV anymore, you know? So, and then I
Mm,
log on to this app and it's like constant. Yeah, but being a
yeah.
sensitive person, it's definitely a lot coming in. Yeah.
Yeah. I just, I love the word you use, cozy. Of, for me, that feeling, it's a calm feeling. It's like being in bed, like a little half an hour later in the morning. And that's like that kind of feeling when I am not watching TV or on social media or like being highly stimulated, it becomes more presence in my life. And thankfully, I've done tons of work on myself. Like I'm at a place where I can identify that and like move towards it. And so I can decide of like, okay, am I going to go do this activity that's more agitating, or am I going to sit by the window and like watch the birds outside?
Mhm.
And it feels so much more regenerative than watching TV. Watching TV, I tend to just like, it's like time is just erased. And
Yeah.
afterwards, I don't feel any better or more rested. And who knows what horrible things that I saw. It's in my brain for the next hour.
Yeah. It really is hard for me to watch TV. My husband likes to watch TV, so it's like it is a thing we do to be with each other. But lately I'm like, I think I have to tell him I can't do this anymore because it really does leave me feeling so overstimulated and anxious after consuming
Mm.
it. It's funny because the content, I could be watching a vampire show. But if I read a vampire book, I don't feel the same way, you know? So it's almost like the visual, it's just like so much light and noise and yeah.
Mhm. Do you feel like this is something that has kind of always been there and you're now noticing it more, or that it's more new for you?
A good question. It's hard to say because before I started doing a lot of this work on myself a while ago, I was kind of just like, that was my baseline, was anxious and stressed out and overstimulated.
Hmm.
And I don't
Yeah.
know if it's that it's been there the whole time and I'm just now realizing what is causing the overstimulation or if it's something new. I guess I would have to say it's probably been there the whole time. I'm just more tuned in now to what it is that's causing either cozy feelings or stressed, scared, anxious feelings. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up watching TV all day long. I mean, during
Yeah.
dinner, the television, it was always on.
Do you feel like you always felt that way as well, or is it something new that you've noticed?
I feel like, well, I'm hypothesizing here, but it might be that because I didn't realize it, but my baseline was also like anxious and stressed. And so I think there were times, like a while we're watching TV, it did help me to relax, to kind of like turn my mind off. So it was in relation to that state that I was in. And so I would watch some TV, but now that level of sensitivity is yeah, I would say it's more. I mean, I can watch some, like I'm a Star Trek fan, and the old Star Trek from the 1960s, it's very slow paced.
Mm.
So sometimes if I'm doing something manual, I could like want to have a little like companionship, I can put something like that on, and that feels okay. But I'm in a state of actively doing things typically, right? And that it's not a state of like relaxation and finding that like very down-regulated state either.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point because I can watch things like The Office or Parks and Rec or Gilmore Girls, and I'm definitely not feeling
Mhm.
as anxious as, Game of Thrones or something like that. So there's obviously
Yeah.
different types of media that have different effects, but even overall, I think there's something about consuming anything that leaves me kind of feeling off balance after. Yeah.
hmm Yeah. And I feel like that with screens too, like it just in general in the evening, the difference between like reading a Kindle versus reading a normal book. Like there is a difference of how stimulated or like rested I feel after. It's interesting. It's so interesting because we're all so like inundated with screens all day long.
Yeah, and if you
Yeah.
have an online business, you're also
hmm
inundated with screens all day.
So something I want to share that brings to mind is what I've done recently is to do things like have a part-time job outside of the house. I have worked on a computer since, really like early 2000s. I mean, like hours, days just staring at the computer alone in like now I'm in my basement. And so now there's a little neighborhood bakery. I go there a few mornings a week. I am moving my body. I am talking with happy people. I am like as like this talking about human design. I'm what's called a triple split definition, which means like myself is divided into three different pieces, and that in order for me to kind of feel like everything's connected, I need to be around other humans. So I look at it almost as it's like a therapy or an investment in my business because it helps me to balance all of these things that I feel like can get to me after a while, the loneliness and too much screen time. And so that's also something I'm always encouraging people is to like find ways to bring balance into your business that aren't necessarily in your business, right?
I think that's really interesting. I think that's really great advice for someone who's sensitive and is constantly working on a computer or working from home and completely alone staring at a screen all day long. I mean, I guess I shouldn't say completely alone. Maybe you're talking to clients on Zoom, but still it's a little bit
Yeah.
different than the
Yeah.
It actually reminded me, I lived in Manhattan for a few years and worked from home on a screen, and I used to just be so excited to walk down the street and get a coffee because
Mm-hmm.
I would just see
Yeah.
people, So it's just, yeah, I like that advice of making sure that you're incorporating things, even if it doesn't have to do with the business, but that will kind of rejuvenate your energy.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
it's helped a lot with my mental health for sure. So,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's funny, there are a lot of pros, right? Like when I think of when I worked in an office and then we transitioned to remote during COVID, and it's great. It's flexible. You can work from home, but you're also not seeing people and you're not connecting with them. in the same way. It just is a little bit different over Zoom versus being able to walk over to someone, which is kind of nice because people can't come annoy me whenever they want. But then you miss out
Yeah.
on the in-person interaction. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do think that's good advice of making sure that you're filling your cup in and outside of the business. What other advice could you give sensitive entrepreneurs? I'm sure you do it daily, but maybe some concrete, practices they can implement immediately to protect their energy while running a business.
One practice that I recommend a lot, I have a checklist for this, a nervous system checklist, is to at least daily check in with your nervous system, do some grounding breath work, and like see where you're at. Acknowledge if you're feeling stressed, like acknowledge whatever is coming up. And it might be just 1 minute, right? And then from there, move on into your day. So, what that does is it gives you a chance to transition from where you're at when whatever like helter skelter things are happening into a more grounded state where, what we talked about earlier, your brain can kind of open up into more creative, big picture thinking. And then it also trains your nervous system to regulate with more ease because it's just like a muscle. And the more that we exercise it, then the stronger it becomes. And so over time, it's easier for you to relax. You become more resilient to stress. And it doesn't take much, like it's like a minute. Um, and ideally, you do that several times a day, like whenever you kind of notice you're spinning out or whatnot, you just pause. And instead of trying to fix the problem, you let your nervous system calm down. That's super powerful. And build in breaks. Like I take a 2 hour lunch break and I used to feel a little bit guilty about it. It seems luxurious, but like first of all, it gives me like I have a little time to like bleed in on either side for work, but it gives me time to have a good lunch, to often take a nap or exercise so that then I can come back in the afternoon and feel like, okay, I'm actually getting good quality work done. I totally checked out from work, during the lunchtime. It just like helps me to feel so much more grounded and empowered. So things like that, where put it into your schedule, whether that is your like morning yoga or lunchtime run or mid-afternoon like mini nap. These things I think it's counter to our like work culture, but they're so effective for productivity and for just feeling good in your business. Not a big, like it's not anything big and magical, right? It's pretty simple.
Yeah, simple but powerful, right? And I
Yeah.
also think the beauty of being an entrepreneur or a business owner is that you actually do have the flexibility with your own schedule.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
use it. You can use it. You're allowed to.
Yeah, it's your schedule. And if a 2 hour
Mhm.
lunch break allows you to come back and be more productive, then ultimately it's what's good for you, but also what's good for the business. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
I support it. I support 2 hour lunch breaks and
Thank
afternoon
you.
naps, whatever works.
Yeah,
Uh,
I did post about it once, and that's all I got was supportive comments of like, "You go, girl."
yeah, I've actually been thinking about it myself because I love my mornings, but I've been doing a lot in the mornings instead of taking time for myself. And I'm like, okay, I think I need to start
Mm,
incorporating back into because that's how I start my day. I like to get up, have my coffee, move my body outside, have a minute to ground, meditate, and taking that time for
mhm.
myself actually allows my day to be a lot more productive versus trying to get everything done, 2 hours before I have more to get done.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I hear that a lot from my clients too when they skip their morning routines of how it affects the rest of the day. And it's like you're trying to be efficient and productive and just get to work, but it actually kind of backfires.
It
Yeah.
absolutely backfires. I can tell I've also been doing kind of a practice of checking in with my energy each day. kind of more towards the end of the day, like reflecting on how did my day go and how did I start my day? What did it look like? What produced good energy? What didn't? And
Mm.
that's the main one that I can see is
Yeah.
the mornings. Yeah.
Yeah. I like that.
Well, I always like to ask before we wrap up, what is making you cozy this week?
So I'm actually in Brazil right now, and I live in Alaska most of the year, and then come down here in around this time when all of the leaves have fallen off the trees and we haven't had any snow yet. My husband's Brazilian, and we have family down here, so it is so nice here. The trees are full of flowers and green, and there's birds all of the time. So my cozy place is waking up in the morning, opening the doors, letting the sunlight come in, hearing the birds, and making coffee, and just kind of watching the world outside. Maybe do a little bit of journaling, maybe just take in the view.
Sounds magical. I'm
It's so
jealous.
lovely.
Yes. I think what's making me cozy this week is that I've been reading for fun, which is something I used to do a
Mm-hmm.
lot of. Um, it would be normal for me to read 100 books a year just for fun reading because I have a lot of reading I do that has a purpose. I've been doing that again. I'm almost done with my second book in like 2 days, and it just kind of feels nice to have something that's just
Mm-hmm.
fun and feels good. And yeah, that's what's making me cozy this week.
That sounds awesome. I love that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
fun. Fun reading.
Yeah. I mean, I love reading, but every now and then it's nice to just have like a romance book or something, you know,
Mm-hmm.
instead of like how to
Mm-hmm.
make my life more productive. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right there with you.
Yeah. Okay, so tell us, Heidi, where can the listeners connect with you and learn more about your work?
My website is servicewithsoul.co. And there I have a blog, I have linked to podcast interviews, and my free download, which is a daily nervous system checklist that walks you through just real quick some steps to help to calm your nervous system and then move forward into your work from a place of grounded empowerment. I'm also on social media, though not 7 times a day. It's Service with Soul as well. And there is a Substack and a thread sometimes, so you can find me in those places as well.
I will link all of that in the show notes, and of course, I'll put all of my stuff there as well. But I will certainly link Heidi's socials and her website so that you guys can access that. Thank you so much, Heidi, for being on the podcast today. It's been great.
Thank you, Chelsea. It's been so lovely to chat and have some cozy conversation with you.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, well, thanks everyone. Have a cozy week. Bye.